Producers play a vital role in shaping the sound and success of rappers, often serving as the unsung heroes behind many of the highest charting hits. These talented individuals craft the beats, mix the tracks, and provide the sonic backbone that allows rappers to shine. However, despite their significant contributions, producers frequently find themselves left behind as rappers chase the next hot sound or trend with another producer. Typically, since the artist carries more of the spotlight and therefore responsibility for the marketing of the song, they will be more selective with which beats they record on. So, can we really blame them for just doing what's best for their career? Or should they remain loyal to the producers that crafted the sound that created their success in the first place? Today, we find out. Playboi Carti is arguably the poster child for abandoning producers, but his relationships, just as with other artists, abruptly end, leaving the producer hanging and/or wondering what went wrong. But regardless, Carti remains the best example of an artist shifting through various eras, portraying different personas, wearing different clothes, and most importantly, selecting different production each album cycle. And this type of behavior has persisted since the beginning of his career, even before the fame. Such as Milan Makes Beats, an Atlanta-based producer who created several notable Carti tracks early in his career, including V-Lone Thug and On Go. And despite these contributions to Carti's career, he repeatedly failed to be paid for his beats, often being ignored entirely, one day even being blocked by Playboi Carti on Twitter for asking for fair compensation and credit for his work. A few months later, without any further notice, Milan teases releasing one of his collabs with Playboi Carti, titled Butterfly Coupe, without his permission, in turn giving Carti a taste of his own medicine. But Carti didn't take this lightly, for he proceeded to unblock Milan to DM him privately not to drop the song, or he'll call some friends to come pay him a visit. Milan Makes Beats officially released Butterfly Coupe on all platforms, featuring young bands shortly after, and it remains to this day. Perhaps Playboi Carti came to his senses and let him finally make some money rightfully from his work, or he didn't have any legal grounds to take it down, considering he had already dropped a few tracks without compensating Milan, essentially acting as a swap. But from Playboi Carti's perspective, Milan was just an old producer trying to gain clout off his name now that he had caught a little bit of a buzz for himself. In fact, stating that he only raps on Pierre Bourne beats now. Around the same time, while recording his first studio mixtape, Playboi Carti, a similar incident would occur with Mexico Dro, also a key figure in Playboi Carti's early career, even producing Carti's breakout hit, Broke Boy, for he would also accuse Carti of failing to pay for his beats. The producer even tweeted out publicly while approaching Carti's self-titled debut, which he allegedly played a significant role in, to take all the songs with his beats off the tape. And just like Milan, Mexico Dro was soon replaced by Pierre Bourne as well, who would subsequently shape the sound for not only Carti's first studio project, but also remained heavily involved in his sophomore album, Die Lit. Playboi Carti spoke on his struggles locking in with producers in an interview featuring Lil Yachty.
So you want to tell the people what took so long for this tape?
Producer problems. I wanted to stick to one sound, but that one sound wanted to give the sound to everybody. So I had to hold off until I find that nigga that's gonna sit there and be on Carti's sound and just Young Carti sound only.
And while Playboi Carti and Pierre Bourne had a rather lengthy run together, all good things must eventually come to an end, right? For after the release of Die Lit, Playboi Carti had successfully built himself a cult following that was salivating for the next full-fledged project, Whole Lotta Red. The pressure had only increased as he had grown since he developed a reputation for bringing some of the freshest beats to hip-hop. He needed to shake the game up with yet another unique sound, as his two previous projects had already done. But during this time, Pierre Bourne had actually gained a following too, not just as a producer, but as his own standalone rapper/artist with the success of T-Lop 4, and therefore, he began to allocate more studio time and beats to his own career rather than Carti's, which unfortunately does not correlate much with how Carti likes to work with producers, locking in for long periods of time to craft a unique style together. How else can an artist truly record a cohesive project without everyone being dialed into the specific task at hand? And so yet again, Carti moved on. And of course, Pierre still ended up being credited for a couple tracks within Whole Lotta Red when it finally released, but this was a huge difference from essentially being Carti's go-to producer for the last 3 years. Instead, Wake Up Filthy would step up to the plate as Carti's next right-hand man, contributing to a significant portion of the album. And to be honest, given the direction of Whole Lotta Red, encompassing a much darker, grungier, vampire aesthetic, this transition was likely for the best. Pierre Bourne tends to have much brighter complexions within his music. But what many forget is that Filthy's dominant role behind the album was actually a last-minute change. In fact, throughout all of 2020, Richie Souf, who is heavily affiliated with Future's group Free Bands, acted as the executive producer and spokesperson to keep fans updated with the creative process of the album. But just like Pierre, when the album finished, Richie was left distraught, only credited with 2 tracks on the album, the rest of which was lost in Carti's endless unreleased catalog to never officially be released. At first, Carti and Pierre Bourne's split seemed to be amicable, just a difference in goals at this stage in their respective careers. However, in 2022, the real dirt behind their disputes rose to the surface when Pierre Bourne publicly commented on a feud Playboi Carti was involved in with his own label owner, A$AP Rocky, whereby A$AP leaked an unreleased music video titled Sights featuring Carti on his own Instagram. The Opium camp expressed their anger with Rocky on Twitter, to which Pierre seemingly defended Rocky, tweeting, "Don't bite the hand that feed you," referring to how A$AP Rocky is initially who gave Carti his big cosign to reach the point where he is today, but also illuminates the dynamic between Carti and Pierre at the moment, because why else would Pierre publicly make a stance against him, unless Pierre Bourne feels a similar way about how Carti has treated him in providing him the unique production that helped boost Carti to the mainstream. After all, Playboi Carti's first hit was relatively synonymous with Pierre Bourne's producer tag.
Yeah.
You wanna come out here?
Opium's A&R, Opium Baby, responded on Carti's behalf, tweeting, "F Pierre too. I had to beg bro to let you in the studio. Don't bite the hand that feed you," and shortly follows up with another tweet. "But we just seen you in New York in the studio, and I tried to glue the shit back together to you. He ain't checking for you, boy," which summarizes exactly the point we're making here. It is now 2024, and Filthy definitely seems like he's still involved in Carti's recording process for the next album, tentatively titled I Am Music. In fact, many would deem him as an official member of Carti's label Opium at this point, even though he's technically already in another producer collective working on Dying. But even with that being said, I wouldn't put it past Carti to seek a new direction with regards to production for his next album. I mean, he and Swamp Izzo have already made it clear that music would draw more inspiration from Atlanta trap roots rather than rock and metal, as Whole Lotta Red and some of the leaks following the album consisted of, the latter being Filthy's forte. In fact, the latest era of Carti's low voice, pseudo-officially released music in early 2024 has almost been produced entirely by legendary producer Carto Got Wings, which leaves us with the question, will Carti abandon Filthy like he has with the rest of his producers in the past? He has definitely proven the strategy is very effective and has kept the fans eager for new music no matter how long the wait due to the unpredictability of its production. In this case, Carti ditching his producers may have been a critical reason his everlasting hype has had so much longevity. However, his lack of loyalty may have destroyed certain relationships that could have long-term implications down the road. I guess we'll find out in the years to come. Lil Uzi Vert and Molly Raw are one of the most iconic rapper-producer duos from the 2016 SoundCloud era. Although not as recognizable as Pierre Bourne, Molly Raw opened each of his tracks with a well-known producer tag too, performed by none other than Uzi, which should already be an indicator of their relationship. The two were introduced in 2014 by a local Philly rapper, Kerr, who recruited Uzi as a feature at the time, and were inseparable for years to come, including collaborating on multiple of Uzi's upcoming projects such as The Real Uzi, Lil Uzi Vert vs. the World, Perfect Love Tape, Love is Rage 2, among countless hits within these tapes. But despite their success, things began to fall apart in late 2019, at least publicly. Amidst a stressful 3-year hiatus, Lil Uzi Vert was approaching the most anticipated album of his career, Eternal Atake. The recording process for this album consisted of endless drama, ranging from threats of retirement, beefing with his own record label executives and label mates, to the entire finalized version of the project leaking online. Needless to say, Uzi was on edge, in search of the culprits who were ruining his career-defining album rollout. Unfortunately, Molly Raw was caught in the crosshairs. See, the very same day, Uzi was informed by fans that one of his other primary producers, Forza, was selling his music to private buyers without permission. And so, I guess Uzi used this time on Twitter to express his suspicions of Molly Raw too, claiming that he was also a snake and that he stole $20,000 back in the day. Obviously, Molly Raw wasn't taking such allegations lightly. That's practically an instant blacklist from the entire industry if true. So he responds to Uzi's tweets directly and denies any involvement in the matter. And regardless of the truth, Uzi proceeded to partner with the producer collective working on Dying to complete the long-awaited album, including the likes of Brandon Finessin and Benny X, who were also significantly involved in the creation of his next album, Pink Tape. It seems as though Uzi and Molly Raw's relationship will never be the same, as they haven't released a song officially since the incident. On the other hand, Molly Raw has actually kept up with Uzi's ex-best friend, Playboi Carti, credited for producing 2 tracks on his latest album, Whole Lotta Red, the following year. But thankfully, time seems to have allowed the rapper and producer to forgive each other. For in 2021, Molly Raw stated on a live stream that he and Uzi had been working together again.
We working. We working. I don't got no snippets or nothing, but I mean, just when we working.
In the year after, the two actually released a couple tracks on Uzi's Red and White EP that served as a teaser before Pink Tape, although we come to find out both tracks were old, originally previewed back in 2017 to be potentially cut for Love is Rage 2 when they were still locked in. So it may not mean anything more than just business for their relationship. Not to mention, Molly Raw wasn't credited with any songs on the Pink Tape track list that followed. In fact, the only new collab we have received any news from is once again from Playboi Carti, who previewed the track that fans have labeled Justin Bieber at his birthday party late last year. So Lil Uzi Vert and Molly Raw may be on speaking terms again, but if I were a betting man, I wouldn't expect the same level of music to ever come from them again, especially since Uzi has already found a new primary producer in Brandon Finescent. But Molly Raw wasn't the only producer Lil Uzi Vert had a very public altercation with. In fact, Young Forza, who we mentioned earlier, was essentially outcast from the entire industry after producing for Uzi, later admitting to entering the military to pay his bills afterwards. And funny enough, it actually all occurred due to never publicly releasing any music together officially, at least until much later on. See, many producers don't actually get paid until a song releases, for either their upfront exclusive costs or license, and obviously their royalties. And therefore, if none of the songs they have worked on, even with major label artists, ever drop, they don't get paid. It makes sense, but the problem with this situation resides in the fact that they lack any control as to if the song is approved to be released. That power relies solely with the artist and the respective label. This exactly describes the case for Young Forza. For Forza, among the other working on Dying producer collective, patiently awaited Lil Uzi Vert to clear up all his personal and business issues amidst the Eternal Take recording process. Except, as previously mentioned, the period between EA and Uzi's last album would last almost 3 years. This meant that all the producers hoping to land a placement on Uzi's most coveted project were not technically paid a dime for this entire time. Now, of course, if they end up earning a placement on the album, it would all be worth it considering the expected commercial success of the project. But still, one could easily be worried for their livelihood, especially with how erratic Uzi's album rollout has been thus far, including scrapping entire versions of the track list and its accompanied producer placements. And what's worse is that countless songs from the original track list leaked online for free, exacerbating the issue since artists typically cancel any and all plans for music already circulating, a few of which, and frankly some of his most popular, produced by Forza, such as 1600 and Of Course. Not to mention Uzi's threats of retirement after all the label drama and leaks that could result in Forza never being paid. All the work was for nothing. So he did what he felt he needed to do at the time: sell leaked music to the fans. It was the perfect crime considering all of the other leaks. They would just blend in with the rest. No one would expect it was him selling the songs to the bloodthirsty fans, right? Well, he got caught red-handed, all the while sleeping in the comfort of his own bed in a suite paid for by Uzi. In retrospect, he should have known not to sell unreleased music under his own social media handles, because as soon as fans caught word, they told Uzi. And as we all know, Uzi is no stranger to airing his producers out who've wronged him on social media. He tweeted, "Forza lucky I ain't F him up like I ain't know he was stealing and selling music. We should have stomped you out, but just kicked you out, you sweet. Sleep outside. If you don't know, this who was leaking and selling." As expected from Uzi's tone, Eternal Take released and Forza received no placements. It was only years later that Forza finally gave his side of the story. For in 2023, an old leaked track from the Eternal Take days began trending on TikTok as one of the app's most popular sounds, the original beat of which produced by none other than Young Forza. So Uzi and his label used this as an easy opportunity to capitalize on an already trending sound to, of course, profit from his music and officially release the song on all streaming platforms. This was finally Forza's big break that he worked towards tirelessly for years, right? Except unfortunately for him, the version of the song that circulated and the label decided to release was a Plug and B remix with an entirely different beat, and therefore he received no credits or royalties from it. Forza responds in a tirade, believing himself to be cheated out of his hard-earned credit, posting on his Instagram story, "Lol, when you dedicate 3 years of working with one artist while they continue to make millions and you didn't make a single penny, then talk to me. Until then, y'all will never understand what that feels like. It's not like I was being paid and just being greedy. I never had anything to my name. Someone real dirty would have probably tried to steal from them. I'd rather go make some money on my own than be a theft. Couldn't even pay for rent or my own weed. They wasn't even gonna help me buy a new laptop when mine broke. But y'all think because I'm hanging with people I'm supposed to be happy? LMAO, I ain't gay, they don't pay for nothing, I have family and bills. Y'all are sheep." Not saying nothing else about this. By the way, I'm all for staying down till you come up, but don't starve your dogs and not expect them to bite when they hungry. And in response to the commenters of a YouTuber breaking down the entire situation, claiming that he should have simply produced for other smaller artists in the meantime to support himself, he replied stating that his management advised he remain exclusive to Uzi in order to not degrade the value of his beats. I think in his situation, many of us would go down the same path. Regardless, Young Forza was blacklisted from the entire industry afterwards due to his reputation, even getting kicked out of his own producer collective shortly after the incident. Fans would even discover he shipped off to the military to potentially never get a placement with any artist ever again. But perhaps Uzi also gained some perspective over the years, because later that year, Forza would finally earn his coveted Uzi placement and be paid out for his production. Uzi approached his first full-length project after Eternal Atake, titled Pink Tape, and unexpectedly decided to include some of the most popular leaks that caused much of the initial drama prior to EA on the new album as bonus tracks, one of which, named of course, produced by young Forza. He finally did it. But after all these years, was it really worth the time and effort? 4 years for one placement? I can't really say it was. And because of this, Forza hasn't been seen much in the studio, if at all, since his days with Uzi. As mentioned, the first and likely most obvious reason an artist would abandon a producer is their desire to evolve artistically and sonically. It is entirely possible for an artist to develop a new sound with their current producer, but that takes time. Not only does every minute in the studio take money out of their pocket, but also the internet waits for nobody. So no hard feelings, right? Therefore, the more efficient route is simply to experiment with different producers that match the sound the artist is trying to achieve. And so on to the next producer as their direction changes once again. Yeat is the most recent example of an artist that uses this producer hopping strategy. In the early stages of his career, Yeat's go-to producer was Tragic, an Atlanta producer who many fans argue was responsible for Yeat's initial rise to fame due to his unique sound that blended underground and mainstream sounds after the success of Playboi Carti's Whole Lotta Red album. In fact, 3 of Yeat's first viral hits with the help of TikTok were all produced by Tragic. Sorry about that, money so big and money twerk. However, as Yeat quickly became a superstar, accumulating cosigns from Drake and practically the entire industry, Tragic unfortunately worked with him less and less. In an interview, he hinted that there was no animosity between the two. They just went in their own direction, collaborating with artists they would have never imagined a year before.
2 years ago, you know what I'm saying, we stopped working. The first like 4 or 5 songs we make back working is hits, like all went crazy. You know what I'm saying? Now we both got our own momentum, you know what I'm saying? He working with Drake, I could work with Lil Uzi. It's just like the coolest shit ever, you know what I'm saying?
But to this day, the iconic underground duo has yet to collab since their initial run. And Yeat has already seemingly attached himself to other producers as he navigates the studio with A-list rappers like Young Thug, Lil Uzi Vert, and as mentioned, even Drake. More recently, Tragic has broken his silence on the situation in the Yeat Twitter community, replying to a fan asking him to come back, stating sarcastically, "You're right, I should beg bro to not switch up on me, huh?" Confirming the notion that Yeat has, in fact, at least in Tragic's opinion, abandoned him, regardless of how many hits they've made together. Over the next year or so, Yeat progressed the otherworldly sound that he and Tragic crafted together, but with a more dystopian feel to it, and with another producer, Benny X, who was already a well-established producer from Philadelphia's Working on Dying collective that had credits with big names such as Lil Uzi Vert. Benny X executive produced Yeat's sound for a series of projects, starting with Life, although they were originally introduced during his so-called classic album, Up to Me, and was successful in refreshing Yeat with a new signature style that fans could clearly distinguish, many of the time categorized as a new era. But bringing a unique sound is only half of it, for what Benny X's value truly brought was more of a mainstream appeal to Yeat's music to match his popularity. In fact, in 2023, Drake felt comfortable enough to hop on the open verse for Yeat and Benny X's unreleased track recorded years prior, and even release it on his own latest album, For All the Dogs, peaking at number 2 on the US Hot 100 Billboard chart. But just as Tragic and Yeat's relationship fizzled out soon after they got some attention, so too did his and Benny X's, because Yeat's pivotal moment in his career was approaching. He once again needed to pair up with a producer consisting of something different, create something that hasn't been done before, break out the genre entirely. But Yeat and Benny X may have been too successful for their own good, it seems, because Benny X was now one of the most famous producers in the industry, behind the tracks of some of the biggest stars in the world, such as Drake, Nicki Minaj, Kid Cudi, and more, and therefore didn't have much time to allocate towards Yeat albums anymore. And so sadly, Yeat had to move on and find a new producer to lock in with to craft the next sound, and that ended up being Synthetic from Internet Money, who, like Benny X, has practically already worked with everyone from underground artists to Lil Uzi Vert. On 2093, they focused on bringing the world of raves into hip-hop. Electronic music had already bled its way into the genre years prior. Why not take it to the extreme? The two have been inseparable since, even collaborating frequently for the next project, Lifestyle. But we all know where that's heading. In 2017, Trippie Redd and Pierre Bourne emerged as some of the standout leaders of the SoundCloud era due to their unique and unorthodox sounds. That is, even before working with Playboi Carti, that Pierre is typically known for. In fact, Trippie Redd claimed that the whole reason Pierre Bourne even met Carti in the first place place to eventually take off in his career was from his introduction. Regardless, Pierre Bourne and Trippie Redd formulated their own sound together, pulling inspiration from classic video game synths and sounds with the addition of trap drums, and of course layered with Trippie's distinct groaning vocals. It seemed they were inseparable, with countless collabs throughout the next few years with placements on virtually every project along the way. However, in 2020, shortly after releasing A Love Letter to You 4 that included Pierre production, Trippie Redd attempted to release a collab with his new 1400 signee K-Suave titled Moan, and produced by, you guessed it, his old friend Pierre Bourne. But for some reason, upon its release on SoundCloud, the song was taken down. Trippie hit up Pierre and wasn't happy with his response.
Niggas always forget where they came from. I remember when niggas was just engineering in the studio, living out the studio, hoping niggas gave them a shot type shit. And then it's crazy because I so happened to be the nigga that gave the nigga the shot. And niggas forget where they come from. Want to charge their homies $80,000 for beats now. Like, y'all niggas is corny.
So according to Trippie, Pierre wanted to charge him $80,000 for the beat, all the while allegedly being responsible for all of his connections and early hits that led to his success later on, not to mention simply just being friends. One would think they would have some sort of discounted business deal, but I guess Pierre really didn't like the song, or potentially K-Suave, because even for his status as a super producer, the number seemed way too high. Regardless, he didn't seem fazed either by Trippie's remarks on IG Live, laughing about charging them 80 racks while promoting the release of his T-Lop 4 Deluxe. Trippie seemed genuinely disappointed in his comments, reminding Pierre where the sound came from. But Trippie wasn't the only rapper Pierre Bourne was giving mixed signals, because around the same time, Lil Yachty also stated in an interview with Genius that he was weird when asked about their upcoming collab tape that had been teased a few months prior, indicating that it is never likely to come out anymore. And even though they used to be real tight, he wasn't sure about the status of their relationship currently.
Are there gonna be more from you and him, man? Like,
man, bro, I don't even want to.
I heard some things. That's what I'm saying. I'm asking, is the alley-oop. I done heard some things.
Pierre Bourne is weird, bro. I don't want to talk about Pierre. For real.
Yeah,
man. Me and Pierre used to be real tight. I don't know what's up with him.
And the one thing I say about Pierre, at least from my perspective, is
I don't know, bro. I don't even want to talk about it because, bro, I don't really know what the state of our relationship is. Yeah.
Man, it's like that.
Similar to Trippie, Pierre Bourne and Lil Yachty had countless tracks in the vault ready to release. But to be fair, with Pierre being the hottest producer in the new era of artists, you could say the same for practically every popular rapper. So can we really blame him for being particular with who and what he officially drops? Not to mention his own career as an artist that had been gaining some notoriety at the time. But I guess not all hope is lost, because at least more recently, Trippie and Pierre were able to reconcile their differences, in that after more than a 3-year hiatus from each other out of nowhere, Pierre Bourne's infamous producer tag blessed the introduction of Trippie's track featuring Kodak Black titled Colors within his 2023 project Mansion Music. And to solidify the rekindling of their relationship, Trippie also shouted out Pierre Bourne in the song title of one of the songs they collabed on for his St. Michael EP, Yo Pierre Slime. The same cannot be said for Yachty though, as he and Pierre hadn't been seen or heard together since 2020. I guess some relationships just cannot be repaired. Nor would this soured relationship be Yachty's first. Before Yachty had even met Pierre Bourne, he already had a primary producer and supposed best friend, The Good Perry, who produced many of his original hits on the Lil Boat and Summer Songs 2 mixtapes that had launched him into fame in the first place. The most notable of which was One Night. But after Yachty blew up to superstardom in 2016, showered in money, fame, and fans screaming his name on tours, Perry wasn't seen ever again on any of his following projects or singles. When Perry was absent from his biggest album yet in 2018, fans asked Yachty if they were still cool, to which he replied that they don't really talk anymore. Very odd, considering how much success they had together, but later on we find out exactly why. See, after Lil Yachty's music reached the mainstream, he started touring with acts like Young Thug and Ray Srummer. He brought along The Good Perry and the rest of the Sailing team to open for him and gain more exposure on the big stage. However, even though Yachty was reportedly bringing home somewhere around $40,000 a performance, his friends were essentially touring for free. Perry also claimed specifically that he actually wasn't paid for One Night's royalties until about 9 months after it began charting. Both of these reasons caused fans to believe he felt exploited by Yachty and quit the Sailing team shortly after the tours ended.
When y'all are going on tours, right, you said you didn't get your first check till a long time after 9 months.
Yeah, maybe 9 months. Make sure you're talking to the man.
How did it feel? Or I'm assuming when you're doing these shows, somebody's got to get paid, right? So I'm assuming the artist, Yachty's getting paid.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel upset that I contributed to this massive success, yet I have still yet to get paid?
And this is what Toomp was talking about at the town hall.
Right. While somebody else is getting 30, 20, 30, 40,000 a show, or this person is able to buy these things and be financially free, yet I'm still not anywhere near that level.
No.
However, it seems as though fans jumped to conclusions too soon, because in late 2020, Yachty answered another fan asking for an update on his relationship with Perry, stating they were cool now. It wasn't until 2023 that Perry was able to explain that there was never really any beef between them. He was just older than Yachty and his friends and wanted to enjoy his new apartment and things in peace. I guess he was just tired of the rapper tour lifestyle.
You just cool now?
I don't think it necessarily was ever turmoil. Like, a lot of people do assume that.
Yeah.
But I think it was just because I'm 1 year older than him. So, like, I've always been, like, the type of person who, like, always wanted to, like, I never had my own crib, like, while I was coming up at the time. So I wanted to, like, go live in my own house, like, go do this, go do that.
Yeah.
So I guess as I was getting older, I kind of just, like, grew apart in that sense. So, like, I was staying in my crib more. Like, I wouldn't come out. I wasn't trying to, like, what's this called? Like, I was trying to enjoy my things, I guess.
Yeah. And other people probably viewed it as you being fake. And
yeah, exactly.
Not to mention that it is actually pretty standard that opening acts do not get paid much, if at all, for performing on larger artist tours. In fact, they are the ones getting value by being exposed to a much larger fan base. So how could Perry be mad at this situation? Regardless of their current relationship though, Perry seems to have essentially retired from rap, let alone producing for Yachty, to likely pursue other ventures. He and Yachty had a crazy run, but Perry obviously just had a different vision for his own life. Now, considering Drake is one of the most popular and accomplished rappers of our time, and he's reigned for over a decade, it's safe to say he's fallen out with plenty of producers that simply couldn't keep up. However, he knew he was working with someone special when he first collaborated with Metro Boomin in 2015 on Future's DS2 track, Where Ya At. This rapper-producer triangle would then blossom into a hit factory soon after, releasing a full collab tape we all know and love, What a Time to Be Alive. And now that Drake was acquainted with the Atlanta super producer, he was always eager to hop on the feature for any artist he worked with, such as Gucci Mane, 21 Savage, and the list goes on. Drake also recruited him to produce a couple tracks on his solo projects throughout the years, but features were mainly where it ended. And of course, because of Drake's status, they benefit dearly. However, in 2022, Metro Boomin was preparing to release his sophomore comeback album after taking a 4-year break from music, Heroes and Villains. Typically, with such a producer project, he would round up all his rapper friends in the industry, preferably the highest selling, to give the album as much push as it could get. I mean, his last one already included the likes of Travis Scott, Young Thug, 21 Savage, Sway Lee, Gunna, Offset, Drake, and many others. Why not find a spot on the album for all these same major players once again? Well, Drake followed this same logic and figured Metro wanted his stimulus pack on the album this time around as well. So he recorded a verse for a track titled Trance that already featured Travis Scott and Young Thug and sent it to Metro. However, upon receiving Drake's feature, Metro told him the album and the song were already finished. There was no room.
What happened with the Trance record? Because Drake, obviously his verse leaked this week. Why did that version not make the album?
Really, it was a song I had did with Travis and Thug originally for my album. I was just in the studio with Drake one time because we were gonna do some stuff for my album, and he just wanted to hear some songs from my album. Then he heard that one and really wanted to get on it, but like I was letting him know that he was really just done for real, and I was really just set on how it was. I was like, bro, I ain't even try to sell you no dream. Like just even with like Slime verse and Trav verse, then the outro, it was just already like, it just really wasn't no room.
Do y'all think there's ever been anyone who's told Drake, I think the song's done?
Not that I know.
As DJ Drama stated in the interview, it's likely a rare occurrence for an artist or producer to turn down a Drake verse. But that was exactly the problem. Metro Boomin, among other artists, felt like Drake was getting a bit cocky with how he treated his collaborators. I mean, I think we all know who leaked Drake's version of Trance, considering how tight-knit Drake and Metro's files have been in the past. And so, obviously Metro Boomin felt some sort of way when the song leaked, and he had already turned down Drake's verse, because now the song faces extra scrutiny when compared to the leak that also happens to feature the biggest artist in the world. The very next day, Metro Boomin retaliated with a leak of his own via Twitter, the original version of Knife Talk from Drake's album Certified Lover Boy featuring 21 Savage and Project Pat, but without Drake, originally intended for Metro and 21 Savage's collab tape Savage Mode 2, potentially sending a message that songs are simply better without him. What fans discover after the fact, though, is that Drake might have already sent a message himself without Metro noticing. For on Metro Boomin's only placement on Drake's collab tape with 21 Savage, Her Loss, fans believe Drake referenced the exact situation that we discussed before regarding Metro turning down his verse.
Crack a couple jokes to some bitches on some snake shit, but if I send a verse to their ass, then they'll take it.
Academics gives a little bit more context on the situation, confirming their dislike for each other is much deeper than music.
Because according to the chicks that Metro be pillow talking with, it said that nigga got a deep dislike for Drake. A lot of the boys you entertain wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me.
But as with many of Drake's songs, the lyrics are vague enough where it cannot fully be pinned down to the specific situation with Metro. Not to mention, why would Drake diss Metro on a song he produced? Doesn't using his beats kind of contradict his lyrics? Although perhaps that would be the most opportune song to do it, so that Metro is reminded of the bars every time he receives a royalty check. But regardless, if at the time Drake actually meant to diss Metro Boomin, obviously we all know where things have ended up thus far, with a full-blown beef involving practically the entire industry now. Metro Boomin definitely isn't sending any more beats to Drake, and vice versa for Drake giving Metro any verses. Both have picked sides, and I personally can't see them working together ever again, especially with how intense the situation has become. Now, this scenario is a bit different. Amidst the pivotal RICO case that has imprisoned Young Thug and many YSL members, Gunna unfortunately found himself in the middle of harsh sentencing due to technically being signed to YSL, the label, but that was ultimately the issue. Gunna copped a plea deal to be freed from jail while Young Thug continues to pursue his case, in which Gunna was required to state the difference between YSL the gang and YSL the label, therefore technically confirming existence of a gang that Young Thug was the leader of. Now, regardless of our personal opinions regarding the morality or street ethics of this decision, much of the music industry, rappers and producers alike, considered him a snitch for the deal he accepted, one of which was one of his longtime producers that he had been working with since the days of his Drip Season mixtape series, not to mention some of his biggest hits, Weezy. They have countless songs together, released and unreleased. However, I guess Weezy's loyalty resided more with Young Thug and or street ethics, because Weezy was actually one of the first people to speak out against Gunna, refusing to ever collaborate with him again, replying to a fan implying his thoughts on the matter by calling Gunna a rat. And can we really blame him though for whether or not Weezy actually believes these words himself? Being labeled a snitch or even working with one in the rap industry can be a permanent blemish to one's career. So Weezy could have very well just distanced himself out of personal protection for his own career and or life, since many others could easily feel some sort of way about it. But regardless, even if/when Young Thug is finally released from prison and potentially supports Gunna's decisions, I'm not sure if their relationship can be mended anyway. Weezy obviously took a stance against Gunna in the most vulnerable point in his career, and Gunna will definitely not forget that. So with all this being said, a rapper and producer's relationship can be the most lucrative and essential aspect of the music industry with regards to the success of their music. However, it also seems to be the most delicate, as it can make or break each of their careers. Rappers rely heavily on their producer to build out their unique sound, eventually becoming part of their brand that allows them to stand out in the competitive rap market. However, as artists evolve their sound, or simply have progressed past the need for their current producer, many tend to abandon those who helped them get where they are in the first place. Although painful, sometimes this is a necessary process though, to be able to find the right fit long term, or for an upcoming project. But after all, isn't that just life? Weaving in and out of relationships based on what lies ahead of us. Therefore, it's hard to place all the blame on the artist potentially just doing what's in their best interest in the cutthroat music industry. But what do y'all think of rappers abandoning their producers? Do they owe more loyalty to the ones that helped build their sound originally? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe for more music documentaries and video essays. I'll see y'all on the next one.